So, several influencers have come out in recent days talking about and spreading misinformation of how FEMA and the U.S. government more broadly have responded to Hurricane Helene and the efforts in Tennessee and North Carolina. And I don't want to talk about those influencers specifically. I think this is a bigger opportunity for us to talk about how a lot of Americans need a better understanding of how the U.S. government works. And I say this as a former federal employee who was there when we were deciding on budgets, talking about money, and how those resources would be allocated. Now, I don't work for FEMA, but essentially what you need to know is that every year, technically Congress is supposed to approve a budget that starts every fiscal year. The fiscal year starts on October 1st. Now, Congress has been passing these continuing resolutions for years. They're not quite a budget, but they fund the government to give money. Those are the resources that the agencies then have to use to perform their delegated tasks. It's not the president giving out money through the executive branch. Congress has the power of the purse. So they are the ones in control of the spending of the federal agencies. So FEMA, the Department of Justice, the Department of Health and Human Services, they cannot spend money more than was allocated to them by Congress unless they have the direct approval by Congress. Where is Congress right now? You might be asking. Well, they're on their election recess. The month before the election, Congress goes on recess. And when asked, hey, maybe Congress should come back to approve more money to FEMA in order to provide more disaster relief, Speaker of the House Mike Johnson said there's no need for Congress to return from its recess, which is going to continue until the end of election season. The only control that the president does have is to issue those $750 relief checks to people. That is the most action they can take without the approval of Congress. So instead of blaming the executive branch and the president and the vice president for FEMA not doing enough, maybe go call your Congress people and senators to get back to work. The last thing I will note here is that FEMA's funding, right, the annual appropriations that the federal government is providing FEMA has been generally flat over the last 5 fiscal years. The green is the annual amount of money Congress gives them. The supplemental funding, the funding that Congress has to vote on separately, is in the orange. You can see with COVID and some of the wildfires and hurricanes, that's what they've appropriated. And the issue is that FEMA is having to take on more and more labor, right? They're having to deal with more and more disasters, whether it's pandemics or weather-related events, without any changes to their federal budget. The expectations of them are greater than ever before, and yet their funding stays mostly flat. And that is a cause for us to think about, well, maybe we should also be asking Congress to fund FEMA appropriately for the amount of tasks they are given. I think we all need to take a deep breath and have a better understanding about how the fundamentals